Lazy now. So the Cowboys must have disappointed you this year, right?
It's time for the shop report with
Barbershop Jay.
What up, sports fans? Welcome to the Shop Report. I'm Barbershop Jay. I'll be your host for the day. Here's what's happening. If you're up and around and you're out and about and you want to give us a shout, that number to call is area code 267-687-0026. Once again, the number to call is area code 267-687-0026. And as always, we'd like to remind the folks listening, the Shop Report is now being powered by none other than Rocket Digital Media. It's the one-stop shop for all of your digital marketing needs. You can look them up on Facebook at RDM Detroit. Once again, that's at RDM Detroit. Or you can go to their website, rocketdigital.net, ROCKIT digital.net, and tell them BSJ sent you. Joining us on the P program today is none other than my cat from the NYC, a.k.a. Rucker Park. Brother Rich, what's happening?
Well, again, I'm honored to be on the show. Always happy. I know you are there in Dallas with the fan base, and you all can't go to your wonderful arena, but we still appreciate that you think enough of us, invite us to be a part of this fantastic platform. This is, to me, in my humble estimation, I think this is the greatest sports show on the entire internet, and the fact that you think enough of myself to invite me to be part of it, I'm always honored and humbled to be a part of that. But nevertheless, we'll be back on you. How's the Jones clan? How y'all doing out there in Dallas? How's everything going with you?
You hear that sound? It's the sound of a toilet flushing. That's where that one should have went. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ledger, we got my man from up north, Joey James, a.k.a. Double J. Tell the people what you say.
You know 2020 is a weird year when the Miami Hurricanes are in the top 10 in the NCAA. It only took two other conferences not to play for them to be there.
That right there is hate and jealousy and biasness, but I'm going to let that slide because I digressionize. But I will add this. The college football that you all know today, especially the way it's played, or should I say in particular, based on the rules, is because of the Miami Hurricanes. They changed the rules to college football because of the Miami Hurricanes. Don't act like our dominance was unlike the Cleveland Browns. Okay? Yeah. Get it.
Oh, now believe
he had to find a way to throw the Browns in there, Double J.
Of course. Of course. If you're not going to mention the Miami Hurricanes, then I'm going to mention the
Uncle Luke himself.
Darn right. Okay, well, you know what? Uncle Luke it is. Now, make up my mind. Either I'm Lil Penny, Uncle Luke, Jerry Jones, Horsey Cowboy, Long Ranger. I wish I'll make up my minds. Really? Yeah, okay. Got you. Can we get to the subject?
All of them wrapped in one.
Okay.
Making Barbershop J. All of them wrapped in one.
Okay.
You have qualities of all of them wrapped in one,
Okay.
and make a nice package called what we lovingly refer to as Barbershop J.
Okay.
Yes,
Oh,
all of
wow.
them.
Well, that was an upchuck moment. So now what? I'm a Southwestern egg roll or something? Yeah, okay. All these
Well,
healthy.
that's quite the hurricane, if you ask me.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Yeah. You know what? We're not going to even go down this road. Can we please get to the subject of today's the show? Okay. Now, we don't get to do this often because I like to find things that are apropos for this particular segment. So, of course, today's show is no sports intended. That's what it was supposed to be before thing one and thing two, 10 Speed and Brown Shoe, got to just yik-yakking in with the shenanigans at the beginning of this show. Forgive me, people, for they know not what they have done. In our no sports intended show for today, we discuss politics to a certain degree. Now, sports talk is our bread and butter. This is what we like to do. But every now and again, we have to add an element that involves everyday people, life, the common man. I came across an article that I will read to you all from the Cleveland Plain Dealer. It's a commentary written by a guy named Brent Larkin. If you haven't had a chance to follow Brent Larkin or read some of his work, I suggest that you all do so. The man's work is unbiased, to the point, and as I say, it's not about being right or wrong. So many things people try to make into a right or wrong, and it's not for me anyway. It's about truth or untrue, period. You can disagree with something I said, you can not like it, you can hate it, whatever you want to call it. But I'm asking, where are the lies? If you find a lie in something that I've said, don't worry, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. But before we get into the article, I want to ask my co-hosts, Stefanski and Pelt, a question. Brother Rich, we'll start with you. The conversation surrounding the moments leading up to this 2020 presidential election or primary election is all about voting and why we should go out and vote. So I ask you, Brother Rich, why should we vote? In this election or any other election, why should we vote?
Well, I can only speak to you from one vantage point, and that is the vantage point from which I have been informed, taught, educated. And my teaching taught me, and my experience has taught me that voting is, the idea of voting is for the support, the benefit of the informed voter. When I am expected to go to the polls, I am going to the polls supposedly to vote for an individual who intends to, based on what they've told me, give me something in return for my vote. They call it you don't sell votes or you don't buy votes, but in fact, this is what has happened all along. This is what voting is. The politician is supposed to come and say to me, I am going to this particular group. I'm going to help this group here and fix your roads, and you need this. The city needs this. The community needs this. It's not supposed to be where they line their individual pockets and they get campaign donations and they get a nice office and they fix up. No. So when you ask us today, what am I going to vote for? Am I supposed to vote? The question would be, what am I supposed to vote for? What am I going to vote for? What interest is there that I'm voting for? Now, I know some people say, well, if you don't, so and so, Trump will win. But I have a real serious question. A really serious question for you and anybody that's listening. I'll ask you, how much better off is America? Is the black community, poor white, Hispanic people, how much better off are most of our lives if we really look at it? After we voted for Obama, we voted for this, when we vote locally, we vote for the mayor, and then what happens when we vote for the mayor? When the mayor goes into office and he or she decides that they're going to do the will of the person that paid them money. So maybe we should have got some money together and bought some votes because the mayor working for the person who gave them the most money. That's what we find out. We find out that the president, not anyone in particular, I'm not speaking about anybody's office. I'm saying anybody's name. I'm talking about an office. That a station in life where you are supposed to look out for the American people, we are hearing allegedly, supposedly, presidents mock the fact that they don't pay taxes. Let the little man pay taxes. So you're saying to me, vote for people who won't correct this. With all of what they're saying, this is not going to be corrected. No matter who we vote for, they're not going to correct this. They're just mad that their guy didn't get away with it. So when you ask me, I'll close out like this. When you say, what am I voting for? I was taught, I'll leave it like this. My teacher taught me, vote your interest. Now, if you got an interest, go vote your interest. But if I don't have any interest, I don't have an interest in voting against let me vote against Satan so I can elect Lucifer.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
elect the devil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the third party guy is the devil. So I mean, you're not giving me much choices here. So if you're asking me, just little old simple me, I'm not anybody. But if you're just asking me because I'm on this, blessed to be on this platform with you, and you ask me, I'm gonna say to you, to tell the listeners, and I would say to the listeners, anybody listening, vote your interest. If you have an interest, go vote for it. But if you don't have no interest, if they're not stopping the police from killing young black men on the street, I don't have any reason to vote. If they're not going to address poverty in cities like Cleveland and Detroit and Los Angeles and Chicago and crime and violence, the root causes of them, and why the roads in the ghettos look one way and why they're policed, if we're not going to have serious conversations. So I would ask anybody to go to the rapper. He's a rapper. He sold a lot of records, so people know him listening to this platform. Ice Cube says he wants a contract with America. Because if I'm going to vote for you, he said, I'll vote for you, but I want to know. He's saying pretty much the same thing I'm saying, that we're taught to vote our interest. What is your interest today? Vote your interest. And if nobody interests you, I'm going to say this is me. If you're allowing me to speak here about if I'm allowed to say just this last point.
Of course.
About what you asked me. I could not, Brother Richard cannot vote for Kamala Harris. I can't do that. I know she's a black woman. I know, but I'm a citizen of California. I live in California, and the kinds of laws that Kamala Harris has pushed through, not on the sideline, that she pushed through as the Attorney General, were so egregious to black families in California. She did so much damage with her pen in California, and she mocked those things when asked about them. About correcting any of them, and made mention that she really didn't care about any of that. And I must say this, Biden was no better. And that's a fact. He was no better. Joe Biden was the engineer of laws that penalized and criminalized many, many, many of my friends, myself. Many people were touched and given all kinds of compounded sentences and problems and challenges with getting their sentences and their even your school loans. Joe Biden passed that. One of the reasons why you can't get your school loan dismissed in bankruptcy, Joe Biden is one of the key people who did that. Now you say, well, you sound like a Trump man. No, I'm not no Trump man, because I certainly couldn't vote for a man who openly tells me that I am a second-class citizen, and really, even in him treating me that way, he treats me better than the Democrats. Think about that. This man has been caught on tape. He's an open racist. He aligns himself with the worst elements of society and says those are good people over there. But he still has done more in some degree than any of the modern day presidents. Obama was limited in what he could do. They was always watching him, so we're not talking about that. But we're talking about for people calling him a racist. He certainly seemed to have a lot of women in his cabinet. He got a lot of strong white women out in front. And he seems to have some people who give him an ear. Some of the black people in the black community are giving him an ear. Why? Because the Democrats haven't done anything for the black community. The independents haven't done anything, and the Republicans certainly have not. So if the question at hand is, why am I voting? I'm voting for who tell me they got something for the community that I know I come from, that it continues to suffer, and everybody act like, oh, we're not paying attention to them over there. And when their children get murdered by the police, we sing a few songs and send some pennies, and then we move on. No. We need fundamental change now. We're in a time of fundamental, universal change. We have to have upset now. We can't have their poor white country, poor Hispanics, their poor men, their poor women, their poor gay people, their poor people on Indian reservations, their poor people in Chicago, in Detroit, in Lower Volta. There are poor people in France. There are poor people all over the planet that need these governments to really do what governments say you elect them to do. You can't tell a government we want health care. They say universally the American people want health care. How come no Democratic or Republican government has given the American people universal health care? Don't say we can't afford it. They just printed $3 trillion, that's with a T for the listeners, $3 trillion with a T, not billion, trillion with a T, out of thin air the other day to bail out the banks and bail out Wall Street and bail out corporations. And Boeing went and said, we need some money. Now imagine this. Boeing could go to the United States government, Boeing, who has contracts with the government, who has military contracts, private contracts, provide airplanes for all these countries. These are the people that tell you and me, save some money for a rainy day. But I'm living less than paycheck to paycheck. But you tell me, save some money for a rainy day. But Boeing don't have no money. And the minute the pandemic hit, they could run to the United States government and get billions of dollars. But you and me struggling every day. You got to go to the post office. Jay got to go to his office. I got to go try to write some scripts, and I got to do what everybody got to struggle. And if you miss your taxes, now imagine this. A man says, I'm a billionaire, and I laugh at the idea of paying taxes. And I think anybody that pays taxes is a fool. But the poor person who does not pay taxes, Wesley Snipes, he thought he was rich. He thought he was a big guy. And then he even volunteered and said to the judge, Your Honor, please, I'll pay the money right now. And the judge said, too little, too late, and sent him to prison for 3 years. He was a big, famous actor. But here's a man coming out, and if you believe the New York Times, I'm not saying it. It didn't come from Brother Richard. It didn't come from Barbershop J or Double J. It didn't come from the Shop Report. We didn't say it. I read it like everybody else. They said that the man who leads the world said, you are a fool if you pay taxes. Not paying these people no taxes. But if you don't pay your taxes, that's it for me. I'm done.
No, I mean, I was with you on everything you said. But you know what, Brother Rich? I appreciate you trying to be diplomatic in your response. You see what I mean? So as not to offend those who suffer from the Pavlovian theory. And I'll read to you the definition of the Pavlovian theory. By the way, D. Gully from the COLUM Bus has joined us on the show. Gully, what's up?
Everything. How you guys doing?
It's all good.
Good, sir. How are you?
I'll read the
I just
Pavlovian.
feel being the only person from Ohio on the show, man. And the show originates because of you. You're the engineer and you run everything. How does it feel to be what's going on in Ohio?
Really?
Well, it's a bit of a lot of noise. You know, on one side you got the Tribe in the playoffs here, hosting the Yankees in Game 1, but not too many blocks over. You got the first time this season that, you know, the voice of the people or the voice of some people versus the voice of some other people. And we're going to have to figure out if they are the voice of our people. And we get to find that out here shortly. So, it's pretty exciting.
Good.
But, you know, definitionally speaking, but, you know, it's definitely some things to pay attention to. Don't check the reruns or anything tonight. You know, stay tuned live because it's about what really matters to me.
Well,
okay, cool. I'll do that.
At the end of the day, and Double J, I'll let you weigh in on it because the question's the same. And Gully, I'll come to you with the question as well. And why do we vote before I go into the article? But I do just want to add the people that you speak of, Brother Rich, the poor white folks, the communities, Detroits, the Clevelands, Hispanics, and so on and so forth. We are considered the have-nots. Okay, so those are the people that you're talking about, the haves and the have-nots, because that's what this thing is about. As far as the political process or the political climate in this country, because it was going to be another question. I guess I'll kind of ask it, so to speak, or ask it here. But in my lifetime, I've witnessed a few presidential elections, victories, and so on and so forth. And if the world comprehended on the same level, all sense will be common, right? So for the life of me, when I have conversations with people, and I really don't like to have political conversations with people because, you know, it can turn friends into frenemies and so on and so forth. They end ugly. I've had yet to see one that ends well. But people are so connected to their party. I have yet to see, as you kind of alluded to, Brother Rich, a president or someone running for president, election or elector or whatever you want to call it, the end result is always the same. I'm 50-something years old. I've seen enough presidential elections and ain't nothing changed. Everybody running to me and my son was having this conversation about 2 weeks ago because he's 18 now. And, him and his friends or whatever, they talking about, yeah, we're going to vote and so on. Well, who you voting for? I asked him, I posed the same question, so to speak. Yeah, I said, see, that's the problem, man. We are so, not we, you, I, us on this program, but for the most part, folks are so Pavlovian in their ideologies and their thought processes that it's television that dictates what we drink, what we drive, what we eat, who we vote for. Nobody does any research. I said, man, you're going to vote basically for a name. You're going to go in there. It's going to be 1,000 folks who up for election for a whole different. But guess who? I'm not saying him, but I said, guess how many people going to walk up there? They're going to see Biden or Trump, and that's what the thing they're going to punch. And why do they do that? Not because they took time to read up on, what one stands for versus what the other doesn't, and so on and so forth, but because that's what's been being played over and over again on the TV. So let me read to you right quick, Pavlovian in nature, and why I say that. Of or relating to Ivan Pavlov, of course, or to his work and theories, being or expressing a conditioned or predictable reaction. Automatic, the candidates gave Pavlovian answers. This is what I see when I watch presidential elections, even though I haven't watched them really here lately. But again, nothing has changed. This process, even more so now than at any time I can remember, I will say one thing that is different. It has become more about party and not people. They arguing like some grown as juveniles in Congress right now about whether or not to give folks another stimulus and so on. They going back and forth. Meanwhile, the people who depend on that $600 or whatever, I know some folks, they taking a beating right now while the grown-ups in the kitchen arguing over nothing. Why is it I don't see my elected officials until this time of year? That's what I'd like to know. Why? Because it ain't about you. I'm an independent. A politician, regardless of party, is a person that can tell you to go to hell in such a manner that you actually look forward to the trip. But don't mail it in, come down in person. You got me bent. Double J. Why? Why do we vote?
You vote for influence. You vote for change on the surface. However, the concept of voting and watching a debate or a presidential election, so to speak, is where a lot of misconception is happening. And it mystifies me a little bit. Here's why. For any organization that you work in, when something goes wrong, do you blame the owner or do you blame your supervisor? The point that I'm making here is that a lot of the changes that have to take place and that have to be made are on the local level, not at the top. You can change the top, but if you haven't changed all of the elements in the bottom. So here's my point here. If you have feces coming from the top or you have sugar coming from the top, regardless of what those two concepts are, if it is fecal matter, everywhere in between, you will receive fecal matter at the bottom. And that is the part that is not being driven home by anyone. I don't hear it across any party, regardless of political affiliation. Additionally, something that we have to look at is the Organic Act of 1871 and additionally U.S. Code Title 28, Part 6, Chapter 176, Subchapter A, 3002, 28 U.S. Code 3002. When you begin to look at this country as a business, you will begin to change your perception and understanding of how it should be operated. Why I specifically point to those, regardless of how they're debated is or perceived, is that if this country is looked at as a business, you will begin to somewhat come to terms with why things are the way that they are. So why I could personally care less for a party that voted for the KKK, and yes, they wear the blue flag, or the gentleman that has a laundry list of sexual assault claims, but yet what is on record now for officially making that same KKK a hate group. Again, this is 2020 here, and now they're officially a hate group. Let that sink in for a moment. But am I deeming one right or wrong? Again, it's subjective to the individual. But I want to point out that the concept of voting and the power of voting to the same individual that played Despacito or tried to tell me that I wasn't black, or the other guy telling me if I didn't understand my history, I was damned or deemed to repeat it. This is why change starts from the bottom and not the top. If you change the bottom, the top will have no choice but to change. Why year in and year out, regardless of what political affiliation, why they seem to care about people of color or race and creed is simply put, we are the majority. Right. And until we decide to stand on our own two legs, regardless if that is by third party or some form of uprising, things, simply put, will not change. This is not a fight this long in a systemic set of circumstances that we did not create. We're too far now that in our lifetime to witness the fruit of the labor of change to actually take place. It would take roughly 3 generations to begin to see that. However, if we do not enforce and apply a certain change, things will very much stay the same, regardless of which color by flag represents or sits in the White House.
So what you're saying is the more things change, the more they stay the same?
Well, absolutely. There has to be, and I'm not talking about a libertarian party or a green party. There has to be someone else. And there has to be someone else that, again, speaks to what I call the real silent majority, which is by default those, in quote, the minority. Because again, I personally, for one, I'm appalled when I watch Joe Biden play Despacito and try to vibe or tell me that I'm not black if I don't vote for him with Charlemagne. Right. And I mean, that should be insulting at this stage of the game. Right.
Yeah.
To hear from these guys once every 4 years. Once every 4 years. You've been in office in some role for 40 years.
Yeah.
And now things are going to get better.
That's what I want to know too. Good stuff, man.
But yeah, here's this other guy who is on record for saying and doing some insanely appalling things, but yet he had the audacity to create peace in the Middle East, to be pictured with Rosa Parks, and then tell me that the KKK is officially a hate group? Who am I really supposed to vote for?
Yeah. Are you voting for the person, or are you voting for what's pertinent? Brother Rich mentioned interest. Gully, why do we vote?
We vote because it is our way to exercise our voice, or we should vote to way to exercise our voice. Like it or not, by hook and by crook, the ballot box is where decisions, where we as citizens on their everyday lives, we can make decisions and make change. We can also do it through our careers and through the influence that we have, but most concretely, at the ballot box is where it happens. We should vote because of that. Now, especially for the case of us being African Americans, the right to vote has been something that has been, people fought for it, people died for it, among other things. I would say most controversially to me, the right to vote means the ability to use your voice, not the obligation to use it when no one speaks for you. I have no idea at this time. I have no idea at this time what I would do, on the first Tuesday in November, because I'm not certain if my voice is being heard clearly through each of these candidates that we have running. Understand that the idea of it is what you think, and we should. And if the majority says to move one direction, and we didn't choose to go that direction, we have a right to have a grievance. The whole idea of not my president. That's a popular phrase. If you don't like the guy that's in office, whether that's currently President Trump, or that was previously President Obama, or previously President Bush, what have you. You have a right to say that. But I don't think it is a disservice to all of those who fought for the ability for us to vote if we cannot, in clear conscience, check a name next to one of the two obligatory candidates that we would need to vote for. But we vote, to your question, we vote to exercise our opinion, our voice of change. And it is still worthy, it's still a worthy service and privilege that we get to have, because some countries, no matter what, you don't get to vote.
Yeah.
You want it.
And something Brother Rich and I had talked about years ago, we talked about government. I don't know if you remember that conversation, Brother Rich. It's funny how I can remember certain things, but I can't remember. You remember that conversation we had? It's not about government. Is not a bad thing. It's bad government that's a bad thing. You know what I'm trying to tell you? And we've seen too much. I've seen too much bad governing from the government in my lifetime. And it's to your point, Gully, about exercising that right. I'm glad you mentioned the fact that there are those who have given their lives so that we could have that right, because that is true, as well as what Brother Rich said. It's all true. Everything's being said here is all true. If you're going to exercise your right, and as you should, do me a favor. Be an informed voter. Because if you're exercising your right, don't you want to know? It's like reading it's like somebody handing you a contract or some papers to sign. You don't sign anything without reading it. You understand? You got to know what it is as best you can. To be informed about what you getting ready to, who you getting ready to say yes or no to.
If we picked our president the way we pick vacation destinations, things would be a whole lot different.
Yeah, well, that's saying a lot. You ain't never lied. But let me read to you all this article.
But here's the thing. Before you go on with that, but here's the thing, Gully. There have been attempts. Let's give the American people their just due and credit, and let's even say that this generation. Let's just be honest. It's been proven. President Trump said it, and I'll disagree in this regard. He is all of our presidents. Whoever wins, we can't have told the Republicans when they were saying that, well, Obama is the president of everybody, because that's what we told them. Obama is everybody's president. That's the same it is with Trump. He's all our president because when he makes decisions, we are all going to be impacted by it. Now, the question is whether or not you rely on your president for your guidance. You rely, but we are all going to be victimized, or we are all going to be subject to whatever he lays for us. Whatever decision goes on with this Supreme Court, we're all going to be impacted one way or another, and we better get prepared for it. So that's a reality. So he's our president because we're all impacted by it. But nevertheless, Gully talked to us about the fact that none of these people represent him. Why not? Because he probably represents a segment of the population that is a very large swath of society that wanted Bernie Sanders, that was more progressive in their thinking. And that's what the Democratic Party was told that their base wanted. But the Democratic Party, which we have to know and acknowledge, if we're being honest, we're talking about, but the way it is, they're owned by Wall Street, they're owned by the bankers, they're owned by the multinational corporations. They are, in fact, just are the same bit in bed with the same kinds of people that the Republicans are. So they are not allowed to give the citizenry what they want because they have to answer for their corporate bosses and the people who give them big donations and who invite them on private planes and trips, who give them all kind of money for their campaigns when they want it under the guise of quote-unquote campaign donations. Let's be honest. It's a game. George Carlin, the comedian, said it's a big club and we're not in it.
Yeah, that's what it is for me. I see a lot of there's not a politician that I can recall who has not mastered the flowery rhetoric. It's hollow. What's the expression or that old adage? Action talks. Bush walks. They do a lot of talking, but I'm telling you right now, I don't see nothing. Their actions belie their words, or vice versa. Let me go ahead and read from this article, or read this article to you all. This political commentary by Brent Larkin, and it's titled "The Case Against Donald Trump to be Reelected as President." Now, I didn't pick this because I agree nor disagree with Mr. Larkin. I picked this, and after I read it, I said, this would be a good topic. And for our No Sports Intended, and of course for the show and for you guys to dive into, because it makes sense. That's all I'm saying. I'm not agreeing to it. Again, I'm not or taking away or not disagreeing with it, or however you want to put that. I just thought this would be interesting, and I was going to put it out here and let the people decide. Right? Power to the people. And he starts, Mr. Larkin does. 5 little words. One gigantic lie. Quote, "I alone can fix it," Donald Trump promised on that night in Cleveland 4 years ago as he accepted the Republican presidential nomination. But President Trump doesn't fix things. He breaks them. Give him 4 more years and he'll break America. In Cleveland, Trump ranted about poverty and violence at home, war and destruction abroad. He sang that same song Thursday night, again claiming his party's nomination, this time on the south lawn of the White House. But the grievances Trump complains about now are happening on his watch. Nevertheless, Trump and his shameless enablers somehow think they can trick voters into ignoring reality by convincing them Joe Biden is a hybrid version of Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. If they succeed, it will rank as the greatest political swindle in the history of presidential elections. The contrast between Trump and Biden could not be more striking. Biden may not be an ideal choice for president, but he possesses all the essential human qualities Trump lacks and will never have. Notably, compassion, a conscience, and an awareness that truth matters. Now, as the campaign heads into the final 9 weeks, Biden's lead is comfortable, not insurmountable. And the just concluded convention made clear that Trump's 2-part comeback plan involves persuading all voters Trump's coronavirus leadership has saved lives and convincing white suburbanites that Biden's election would wreck their lives. The second part, regarding Biden, might work with sustained misleading salesmanship from the Trump campaign. Bear with me. The first part can't, because it requires selling Americans on what surely ranks as one of the biggest lies ever told, with polls showing that a majority of voters are appalled by Trump's epic leadership failures in combating the coronavirus. A significant portion of every night at the convention was devoted to depicting his efforts related to the virus as Herculean, perhaps one of the greatest success stories in human history. Never mind that this president downplayed the deadly dangers for months, suggesting that the virus would, quote unquote, disappear when the weather warmed. Global warming, too. That's me saying that. Never mind that he seemed to lose all interest in the hard work of leading instead of abdicating the fight to the governors. Never mind he promoted witch doctor cures and repeatedly lied about testing. As George Packer wrote in a brilliant June 2020 piece in The Atlantic, every morning in the endless month of March, Americans woke up to find themselves citizens of a failed state. Now, in late August, they still do. The virus claimed 4,027 lives during the 4-day convention, based on data derived from ongoing tracking of cases by the New York Times. Health agencies and states reported 169,550 new cases. Let that sink in. By Election Day, the U.S. death count will have soared past 200,000, which we know that's already been the case. Here's a number almost as scary. A CBS News YouGov poll taken in late August found 57% of registered Republican voters believe the number of coronavirus deaths is acceptable. What? I got to read that again. 57% of registered Republican voters believe the number of coronavirus deaths is acceptable. Wonder how they would explain that to the friends and families of the more than 180,000 Americans no longer living. Part 2 of the Trump comeback plan requires the campaign to depict Biden as a dangerous radical whose socialistic policies will forever destroy the American way of life. Its central premise is that when rioters are done burning the nation's big cities, those black and brown people are headed to the suburbs. They will overrun neighborhoods, crime will rise, and property values will plummet. It's dark, it's dystopian, it's dangerous, and it might work, causing the race to tighten. 36 Augusts ago, I was on the convention floor in sweltering Dallas when Ronald Reagan accepted the GOP nomination for a second term with a sunny and optimistic prognosis of a nation whose heart is full, her future bright. The upbeat tone that night resulted in Reagan's Morning in America ad, widely considered one of the best television spots ever produced. Now, fast forward to that night 4 years ago in Quicken Loans Arena, when as Trump stood smiling and smirking, obscene and ignorant roars of "Lock her up" cascaded from the crowd, echoing off the ceiling where the Cavaliers championship banner hung. In class and character, the Republican Party of 1984 bore little resemblance to Trump's Republican Party of 2016 and 2020. Trump's ominous warning this time was little different than his message of 2016. Quote, "Your vote will decide whether we protect law-abiding Americans or whether we give free rein to violent anarchists, agitators, and criminals who threaten our future," he warned that Thursday night. The worst president in history wants to take us back to the future. If we let him, this won't end well. Gully, we'll start with you. Your thoughts.
Donald Trump had a very effective strategy.
Speak up,
probably
speak up,
reflective
speak
of
up.
his character- Probably reflective of his character in terms of who he aligns himself with in order to get a job done. I think Brother Rich, Double J may not know first. Jay, you do. Brother Rich probably called it out. I'm probably a bit more modern.
Right.
Than all of you here on the panel. So I have great pause when I see that the reflection of my more conservative leaning views and stances is kind of like represented by a person of Trump's character. That's not, and if I say I'm conservative, that's not what I mean. But if that's what it's been, if that's what conservatism, if that's what Republicans have decided is the best thing for the country, then I'd rather not speak, because that's not what I mean. That's not what I thought. Like the article you read, there was a stark contrast between that Morning in America ad and what, say what you will about Ronald Reagan, at least the idea of the view that he was trying to present is probably a bit more palatable than what we saw in 2016 and what we've been seeing since the rise of the Trump train, so to speak. That gives me great pause. I don't know that everything said anti-Democrat is true, but with my experience, I can't say that everything said anti-Republican is true. But it is very hard now to have a discussion like this in this type of America, because it becomes rather binary in that like or hate. There is no gray area. And that's a poor reflection of the people in charge who probably benefited from not having a gray area where people can't really discuss it. So people rather not, unless they're yelling at each other and shouting with sentiment. You know, I hate the term whenever I hear it from conservatives or Republicans when they're talking about the opposition, you know, talking libtards and idiots and stuff like that. I hate that term, because it's like, I don't speak to that. I don't speak to anybody who cares enough about something to have an opinion that's different from mine. And then, and likewise, you know, to hear, especially me being in politically where I'm at, to be considered somewhat of an Uncle Tom or not fully authentically black. I mean, again, we talked about what the Democratic nominee Joe Biden said on the Breakfast Club. Those things are bothering me very much. This divisiveness is not good, and what has happened, it has become the distraction that will allow political discourse to continue the same old way, where we get the same tired candidates talking about the same tired things, and no real change is happening. And that's my biggest fear.
Brother Rich, what about you? Your thoughts on the article?
Well, I will continue along Gully's line of reasoning and only add this to it and say that one of our biggest issues as American population is that we have been dumbed down. So what happens, the reason why people have been polarized to the issues is because here you have a television station dedicating its programming to telling us everything that's bad about President Trump. President Trump is terrible. President Trump has slept with women. President Trump, who cares about any of that? When does the television program and their programmers, and they use that language for a reason, why are they programming the American people towards such filth and foolishness? And then the other station programs you to the other libtards and the retards and the dumbtards and the they and against the gays and against the this and subtly against black, but they can't say blacks anymore, so they have to use, and this is why, Gully, you're talking about what it means to be identified as a conservative. Conservative once meant values. Today, conservative means racist. That's what it is. A conservative, when a person, he or she opens their mouth, it aligns with what are now considered racist values, racist concerns. Well, there are too many Mexicans. You say what?
He said he don't disagree, and I'm in agreement with you too, Brother Rich. But hold your thought. Let me just read what conservative is, because I've said before, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit a time or two on other shows. Conservative, the adjective, is holding to traditional attitudes and values and cautious about change or innovation. And of course, they say typically in relation to politics or religion. As a noun, a person who is averse to change and holds to traditional values and attitudes, kind of basically the same thing. But what I want to pick from that is, I've said before, as people, the word values is in here. Morals and scruples and integrity, standards, those things in the tradition of the values and morals and scruples and things that we grew up with, absolutely I'm conservative. Do you understand what I'm saying? We were taught to say yes and no and thank you and please.
Most of us are.
You get what I'm trying to tell you?
Most of us are.
You see what I mean? So whatever that, if I think that's kind of what Gully was going, to the point of that part of conservative or being a conservative or conservatism or whatever the case may be, that's not a bad thing. But they've turned it into something else, and they program people who can't think for themselves to follow that line or ideology. Go ahead, Brother Rich, and finish. Sorry. And then I'll read to you what liberal is as well.
No, I think you said it. I think you can continue to read because you said it. That's exactly what we were pointing out. Absolutely.
Thank you. You know what I mean? Double J, I know you've been quiet over there for a minute. I appreciate you being patient. But before you weigh in on your thoughts on the article, I just want to read what the definition of liberal. Open to new behavior or opinions and willing to discard traditional values. Of education concerned mainly with broadening a person's general knowledge and experience rather than with a technical or professional training. So without going too much into detail, there are portions of that. The premise I'm in agreement with. We have to have some of that too. There has to be a balance. That's what I'm driving at here. Absolutely, I'm part liberal. If I'm doing a job and I'm making, I don't know, let's however many dollars an hour, and Double J or Brother Rich or Gully, you come to me and say, hey man, I know opportunity, man, would be less stressful on your body or whatever, but now my values is to work hard and hard. You say, man, you can make about the same thing. Well, I'm open to that. Who wouldn't be open to that? That's progression, so to speak. Or am I missing something here? We have to have a little bit of both in order to be balanced. What these folks, what they pushing forth, and I think one of you all mentioned it totally goes against whatever it was supposed to be intended for, or whatever it's supposed to mean. They saying that's what it means, but what we seeing is something totally different. Go ahead, Double J, have your say.
There's an effective pause in there for a reason. With a lot of the data and from the article that you suggested, something that even I pointed out earlier was about you don't blame the top for the way things are being run at the bottom. Take a deeper dive into who's running the areas with those statistics. And this is why those same places that are baby birding you with how to think, how to act. Again, there's no affiliation on my end. I'm a Kanye quote unquote free thinker. No, I let facts speak for me. The concept of this, of all of this, everything that we're discussing, I'm glad that it's being brought up. I'm glad that the conversation is being had. But at the same time here, I don't, if you have a bad car and you change the driver, it's still a bad car. You could have Mario Andretti driving it. It's still going to be a bad car. You can't get a different result. That, by definition, is insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish on this platform this evening, is that getting everyone to understand that there has to be a deeper level and way of thinking. What Brother Rich and Gully have pointed out is that we as a society have been told what to think, what to feel, who to trust, who to believe, and who to vote for based on how we're boxed in, whether that is straight, gay, white, black, or other. Then that means we're associated with X. And that needs to stop.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to ultimately lead to the largest change in this country, since it's indoctrined, to be honest, because that's what made this country. These folks defected from where they were from. So that ideology of, if you don't like it, leave. Well, unfortunately, every area of land on this globe is occupied by someone or an entity. And for many, they didn't come here even by choice. They were forced. So the ignorance in this country also needs to stop. If you find yourself living and dying off of a color of either party, then you really need to reevaluate how you're viewing your contribution to our society and moving forward.
Yeah, you know what, Double J, I'm with you. But at the same time, you know what's unfortunate? It's, how can I say this? Bear with me because I want to make sure I collect my thoughts here on this. Willful ignorance is an affliction for which there is no cure, except for in instances where one decides to read. I'm with you, Double J. But there are people who are happy, cheerful robots. They're glad to think the way that they think.
But what you just said, that statement, people don't read anymore. This is a headline-driven society. This is instant gratification. This is the dopamine of seeing what you want to see. Right. That's terrifying. No one reads anymore.
Yeah.
That's why we use the word program, Jay. That's what they those stations program.
Oh well, cause I know that now. You know what I mean?
I know you know this.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's what we got. That's the dopamine. What they said. Headline news. That's all they tell us. They don't tell us. American people don't know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
When's the last time you ever heard a story as an American? When's the last time you ever heard a story about what's going on in Canada?
Yeah.
We don't even hear about what's going on in Mexico. Forget what's going on in Guatemala or Haiti or Jamaica and they don't even tell us what's going on in London, another European country, a white country. They don't even say unless something terrible happens. We don't hear what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
They tell us that President Trump didn't pay no taxes. Meanwhile, they didn't pay no taxes. The person telling you President Trump didn't pay any taxes didn't pay any taxes. And they're going to find out. Remember, these are hypocrites we're listening to.
Exactly.
You telling me about the president. You telling me about the president's sexual behavior, but you got a girlfriend. You got a boyfriend.
Yeah.
We know it. You lock a girl up in her closet the other day, and you came out and read the news. This is what you do.
Yeah.
But you telling me about Trump? Come on, man.
Yeah. That's it.
And let me say this. On the article you're reading, I disagree with the author. I do not think President Trump is the worst president of all our lifetime in the history. He may be the worst president of our lifetime, but he's not the worst president in history. Let me ask you a question, and I'm leaving it like this. I remember when I lived in Cleveland many years ago. I remember there being an area in Cleveland called Huff, and there's a street there called St. Clair. Does that still exist? Like where that rap group was from?
Yeah,
What was
yeah,
that rap?
99th, 105, somewhere around there. But yeah, St. Clair and Huff. Yeah. Yeah.
Does that still exist?
Yeah.
Does it still exist? Is it still a ghetto?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
yeah.
rest my case.
Yeah.
Trump wasn't president when I was in Cleveland. I believe it was Clinton, right?
Yeah.
So it got through Bush, Clinton,
Yeah.
Obama, 8 years on Obama, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we blaming Trump. He's done everything bad in the world. Police was killing black people in the 60s. Did it just start under Trump? Trump is the reason why police are killing black people?
Yeah.
No. Let's stop. Let's stop. Grow up, and that's when we grow up. We'll look at it as adults, and we'll say, "Look, this is what Double J is telling us. It ain't an individual; it's the system. We have a problem in the system.
Yeah.
This is what the problem that Gully has identifying as a Republican, as a conservative, because you can't identify with that. That system is corrupted. You identify with that, people say, "Oh, that guy's a racist," or "That guy's he's a house man. He Uncle Charles." Because you can't even say, "Well, I align with this because I have conservative values." Those people you aligning with, now they ain't got no more conservative values. They got racist values and racist behavior, and they down with Trump because they think he's a racist. But they forget Trump had all the pictures. Trump grew up in New York. Trump is multicultural, but Trump is a businessman. He with whoever. So he see that he can get some votes here, he can get some votes there, and he grew up white in America. Of course he got racism in him, but he ain't no worse than anybody else. Come on, man. How is he the most racist president, the worst president, but you got pictures of Trump before he was president with all the rappers and Russell Simmons and this one, Mike Tyson, hosting fights, helped bring Mike Tyson back into boxing. How is he now all of a sudden, though? Everybody want to beat Trump when we was all watching Apprentice. We always talking about you're fired. Now, CNN has told us, and then somebody started writing, he's the worst president of all time. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
We need to grow up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff, bro, Rich. I'm with you on. I'm with everything everybody said here. You know what I mean? There's too many questions and not enough answers. But yet and still we get the same old tired, excuse my French, act. Oh, vote for me November. If you don't vote for me, then I'll Brother Rich, you hit the nail on the head with that whole idea of the Huff and 105. All my life, I ain't seen it change.
Right.
I ain't seen it change. But we didn't have 3,422 damn gone presidents since then. You know what I'm saying? Would you all say that Trump is an opportunist?
Definitionally speaking, that's what makes him a businessman and not a politician.
Yeah, well, I'll say that, but yeah. Because we got I'm in the chat thing on the Spreaker here, and we just got basically a statement from my cats over at the BS3, you know, and I think it's a statement, but a question too, I guess. It's, you know, Trump an opportunist. Well, look, at the end of the day,
are we being asked a question?
Yeah, it was asked. I was sort of asking it, but it was kind of rhetorical too, because we already kind of like touched on it.
Absolutely is. Yeah, absolutely. We touched on it. He absolutely is.
Yeah. He's a businessman.
He's from New York, man. He's a New York real estate guy. Come on, of course he's opportunity.
Yeah. But you know, again, and maybe because of social media, but a lot of things that have been going on that we otherwise did not see. But even to your point, Brother Rich, we still don't get to see all there is that's going on in the world. But we're getting to see more than we used to. And I'll credit social media again. I'll credit social media for that. But at the end of the day, man, it's the same old hat. Do we change? How do we change? Who knows? But I tell you what, being an informed voter, if you're going to vote, that goes a long way. Don't just get up there punching nobody's name because that's what you heard Tucker Carlson or whatever, one of them talking heads. I don't even watch. I've not watched, and I'm proud to say I've not watched one political debate, one political forum, whatnot. Number one, went to the store and forgot my popcorn. So that's it. You know, that's the whole point of watching that kind of stuff. You got to have your popcorn, right? Orville Redenbacher's. And number two, when you're done watching it, I mean, what have you learned? What have you gained? Did it make you a better person? Did it make your life better?
Well, you certainly have been entertained. You certainly have
Entertained.
been entertained.
Okay.
I, for one, will be watching him because President Trump is very entertaining.
Yeah, got you. Fellas, as always, this is good stuff, man. I appreciate y'all, and I appreciate my man with the BS3 or Mr. Sutterworth over at the BS3 Radio for weighing in on the chat line. And on that note, it's been fun, but we got to run. We appreciate y'all for listening. Don't forget to check us out right here on the Spreaker.com network, or check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, and now iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, and give us a follow. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel or hop on over to the shop's Facebook fan page. And if that don't work, Google it for my mans, Bro Rich, Double J, D Gully, and all those who follow. Oh, and the BS3, my bad, radio. And all those who follow and support us, we say thank you. And again, I'd like to remind you that the Shop Report, is being brought to you, or powered by, I should say, none other than Rocket Digital Media's, the one-stop shop for all your digital marketing needs. I'm Barbershop Jay, and you've been listening to the Shop Report. And remember, the next time y'all want to know what's really going on, man, come to the shop. Walk-ins are always welcome. Holla!
Hey, Dak.